My faith growing up began in a Reformed Jewish home. I had a happy childhood. I attended religious school every week, celebrated Shabbat, prayed during the high holy days at synagogue, celebrated Passover every year, and followed many other Jewish customs in my home. I did not look at my faith formation as a formation of prayer, however. We were a practicing family in the terms of observing Jewish traditions and acting like Jews, but not necessarily an oriented towards God type of prayer faith life. My first experience of looking outside my Jewish faith took place when I left home to go away to college. I was very happy to be with my family, observing all the Jewish feast days, observing Shabbat. But my freshman year in college, when I went to pray at the local synagogue on Rosh Hashanah, I felt very empty. I felt separated from my family. I felt like there was really no meaning here for me aside from practicing within my own community. And I realized that my meaning of Judaism was the community that surrounded me, not something I could take away from that community. So without my loved ones, I didn't feel like I was connected. And so at that point, I started turning towards nature, not because I was looking for another religion, just because in my life, I was turning towards things that attracted me. And I was attracted toward the outside world. I loved being outside. I loved camping. I loved hiking. And I loved the quiet and contemplation of being out in the wild. And that became my nourishment for what my heart was seeking without me knowing, which was the presence of God in my life. I found that comfort in nature. That love of nature led me to a residential outdoor education center where I was a naturalist after I graduated from college, out in rural Ohio, serving school children, but having lots of time out in this 400-acre tract of land with a farm and woods just to enjoy my great love, which was the love of the outdoors. During that time, a friend of mine gave me a book on Zen Buddhism. I was living in a cabin in the woods, and I had time to read. And not only did I have time to read, I had time to practice all the different practices that were described in this book, the sitting meditation, the walking meditation, and the thinking about reality in a new way that I had not considered before. So this became my new orientation, in addition to being in nature, looking at Zen Buddhism as a way of finding peace. I was very rigorous in my practice, took it on wholeheartedly on my own, meditated for a couple of hours a day, and finally decided I want to pursue this, and I'd like to go to a center that practices Zen. So after doing some research, I found a Zen center that I would go to in California, Mount Baldy Zen Center in Southern California. I picked up my life, flew out to Mount Baldy, appeared, and stayed there for the next 18 months of my life. It was largely a monastic life where we got up at 3 a.m., chanted and prayed. No, chanted and did meditation. It really wasn't prayer, except for the fact that it laid the foundation later in my life for a life of prayer, especially contemplative prayer. But we did meditation, we did work, we ate, of course, and we did that every day. And that Zen life became my spiritual practice, of course. I was seeking something, and I thought that was my avenue towards seeking peace, towards seeking fulfillment, was through the Zen practice. I was there for 18 months. I was a very loyal practitioner, followed my master, the Zen Roshi, to different places to do retreats with him. I was completely engaged. I was very happy to be living that Zen life, and actually decided maybe I'll become a Zen monk because some of the men there had committed themselves as monks. I came home to think about this and decided I'm either going to become a Zen monk or I'm going to stay home, hopefully get married and raise a family. Those are my two paths that I was discerning. Decided on the latter, and quite soon after that, met the woman that was soon to become my wife. And during that time, decided I was still practicing Zen Buddhism, was still sitting, meditating by myself, still reading, still very immersed and engaged in the life of Zen Buddhism as my spiritual practice. Slowly got introduced to a very new world for me, the world of the Catholic Church. At that time, I knew nothing about the Catholic Church. I knew almost nothing about Christianity. I had grown up in a Jewish home that I think was very sheltered from the Christian worldview. Even though I went to a public high school and went to a fairly secular college, I didn't really take time to learn about Christianity. I kept it very much at arm's length. as something that I had internalized, I think, throughout my childhood. We don't go there. But as I was spending time with my future-to-be wife, started meeting some very inspiring, very prayerful, and very appealing people. A sister who worked for the Little Sisters of the Poor, a nun from the Little Sisters of the Poor, and a couple of priests who were very prayerful, appealing, peaceful people. They really attracted me. And I thought, I wonder what it is that is behind their life. And so a combination of being able to go to church occasionally with my wife and starting to read some books that were recommended to me by one of the priests in the mystical tradition, I started becoming acquainted with the world of Christianity. The first books that I read, and the real gateway for me into the world of Christianity, were the mystics, St. John of the Cross, St. Teresa of Avila, The Cloud of Unknowing. I was very attracted to the life of St. Francis of Assisi. He had the kind of fervor that I had. I was very impulsive, but very engaged. If I was going to do something, I was going to do it all the way. That's why I stayed at a Zen center for 18 months. So when I read about these things, they were things that were resonant to me right away, especially the mystics. They were talking about paths of nothingness, paths of unknowing, not necessarily knowing all the ways of God. What I had to slowly realize is that they were truly abandoning themselves to God after a great mature experience in the life of prayer and in the life of faith. That took me a long time to start to understand, but at least it opened me to the idea that this world of Christianity has a whole side to it that is of great resonance to me because it's a mystical side. As I started doing this, I also started attending Mass and realized this ritual is a very appealing ritual. I don't know what it is about it, but I like the silence, I like the movements, I like the prayer, I like the music. This is something that I miss, having had ritual at the Zen Center. And finally, starting to go to spiritual direction with some of the priests that I encountered, I found a spiritual leader that I had missed from the Zen Center. So things in my life that were holes, having left there, started to become fulfilled. I opened the Gospels and read all 4 of them in the course of a week and was completely amazed at the person of Jesus. The miracles, I believed. By the way, these are things that he did. The things that he taught, I believed. And the response to Jesus that I had was the response that we read in the Gospel. We've never seen anything like this before. We've never heard anyone speak like this before. And that was my really response. That, I think, convinced me that this is where I want to go and need to go. It was difficult for me to assert that, a belief in Jesus at first, having lived a whole childhood of rejecting him at some level. But with the encouragement of my priest, Father Eric, I was not an RCIA. I don't think that existed at the time. So we were just doing spiritual direction. He was very sensitive. He really kind of saw into my soul, and he guided me very gently and said, just carry on. I think he understood that faith is a gift, that we don't necessarily construct it ourselves, that we open ourselves to it. And I think he saw the Holy Spirit working in me, growing a faith in the church, and giving me the chance not to have to express it right away, but in my own time through the work of God to just let it become mine. And that became the next 25 years of my life in the church, was really loving to learn, what is the church teaching? Why is it teaching this? What has the church taught for so many years? How much wisdom is here? I was just eating it all up, reading church documents, encyclicals, reading the saints, reading Bible studies. These are the things that brought me more and more deeply into the life of the Catholic faith.